perhaps is the only regulator that does not really take local content seriously, because it's an open field across the value chain. So
welcome back. This is the newspaper review segment of the show. A reminder that this show is live across 46 other African countries via satellites in some parts of Europe and South America. But we are coming to you live from our studios here at number 48 Swanika Street in Abelemkpe. Also on YouTube and on Facebook, we are streaming at facebook.com/Pan-African Television as well as youtube.com/Pan-African Television. Make sure you do well to join the conversation. Our text line is also very active. Be a part of the show. Let us know what your thoughts are on the topics that we have tabled for today's conversation. Let's look at the topics. Trump ambushes Ramaphosa at White House meeting. This story is captured in the Daily Graphic newspaper. New developments in CJ removal case. We shall be looking at that also. CD performance. Mahama rules, but Bawumia's ideas reign. This is according to a former spokesperson of the former Vice President, Gideon Bwaku. And Mahama orders halt to sale of government lands. This is a story that has been captured on the front page of the Insights newspaper, today's edition. That is the banner headline. So your thoughts on these topics are very much welcome. The WhatsApp text line has been displayed on your screen, 055-9919-802, 055-9919-802. I'll be more than pleased to receive your messages. This morning, I've been joined by former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Honorable Inusa Fuseni, as well as the former MP for Tema Central, Honorable Yves Norte Hansen, and the Yves Hansen Norte, I beg your pardon, and also the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right. Without further ado, let's get into today's topics. We are starting with the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa. He was at the White House, the Oval Office, and let me read a little bit of what one of the news portals, captured this particular story. It says, moments before President Donald Trump escorted his South African counterpart into the Oval Office on Wednesday, White House aides could be seen wheeling two large-screen televisions down the driveway and into the West Wing. Little could have prepared President Cyril Ramaphosa for what he was about to see. Trump ordered the lights dimmed and launched into what amounted to an ambush of his visitor, screening a video he claimed was evidence for his false suggestion that white South Africans are being subjected to persecution and genocide. A shocked Ramaphosa, who had just been exchanging pleasantries with Trump about golf, watched silently. An experienced diplomat who once served as Nelson Mandela's chief negotiator during talks to end white minority rule, Ramaphosa could barely disguise his discomfort. The moment was an orchestrated one, with Trump's team also having printed out articles for him to hold up in front of the cameras that he said backed up his claims of white genocide. It was perhaps inevitable that Trump would use the meeting to advance the French claims, which he's amplified for months, that white farmers in South Africa are having their land seized and are being killed in massive numbers. Just last week, 59 White House Africans arrived in the United States after being granted refugee status by the White House. It's a long story, but I'll end it here, and I'm sure Honorable Inus Hussein has a lot to say about this particular issue.
Well, good morning, Bless. Good morning, Honorable H. and Comrade. Good morning. And good morning to our numerous viewers and watchers. Indeed, I do have a lot to say, but I can't say all here. I do have a lot to say because of the history of Africa and the treatment of blacks. I do have a lot to say because genocide has been perpetuated against blacks by whites who colonized the African continent. In fact, in Namibia, it was a government policy to systematically subject the black populations to genocide for the purposes of medical examination. A lot of them were killed, even in South Africa. The Boers, when they arrived in South Africa, killed a lot of black men. In America, the whites were not the first to settle in America. When they got there, they saw the Indians. They called them the Red Indians, the Inuits. They also saw some blacks. There was a systematic attempt to wipe out the indigenous population. Systematic. And when they realized that they couldn't wipe them out, they kept them in reservations. You know a reservation? It's just like when you establish a head, when you have a head of cattle, and you go and condor up that area and that's a reservation. In Canada, the indigenous population was not only killed, but children who were born to the indigenous population were taken away from the families of the people and given to white people for the purposes of acculturation, to let them look white and behave like whites, destroyed their values. In Australia, and you know how Australia was established. Australia is not a native Western country. In fact, the first attempt by whites to settle in Australia was a concept of Australia as an open prison. And when they went, they killed indigenous people. They killed them, indigenous people. So if Trump is looking for evidence of genocide, it's backyard in America. There's evidence of genocide. What have they done in the United States of America to lift up the lives of the Red Indians who were subjected to horrific genocide? Because when the whites came, they had genocidal tendencies. What are they doing to the blacks who for so many years were rendered second-class citizens in their own country? That the African, the Boers, when they arrived in South Africa and took over that country, they gave the native blacks passes. You know a pass? It's like a passport, an ID card. That if you are moving from one colony to another, one town to another, you have to have permission. What happened in Namibia? And why are the Germans who perpetuated this horrific genocide on the people of Namibia not pay? Our own Patrice Lumumba. Yes. You know the number of people who died by reason of Patrick Lumumba just standing up to colonial domination. Well, let's come back to the United States of America, and particularly the United States of America. Because yes, no matter what you say about the United States of America and their imperialist tendencies, they represent some values. And for a very long time, we thought that the United States of America was leading in the fight for the defense of the rights of oppressed people everywhere. This was what united people who were looking for freedom with the United States of America. This was what gave them the moral right to lead people who were in search of freedom. This was why it was easier for the colonized states and countries of the world to associate with America than their colonial powers, because there is no evidence that America colonized outside the sphere of influence any other African country. And so because of that, they appear to be the sharing of values of freedom, values of independence, values of hard work, values of discipline that we share with them. But those values have now come under the harshest of lights. There's a new realism, and the realism of Trump. Trump, in his second term, is coming up with his own set of values. It is totally not in consonant with diplomatic practice to subject a fellow head of state to ridicule and embarrassment. It is not. It's not in accord with diplomatic. I mean, these matters are better dealt with on the diplomatic scene. If the soft power, and I mean, maybe Trump doesn't want to use soft power any longer. That's why he's canceled the U.S. aid, because U.S. aid was known for the soft power. Now, if a country was doing something that clearly infringed the rights of people, and particularly minorities in that country, there were a lot of ways that America could bring influence or pressure to bear on the country to change ways, but not subject the host nation, and particularly the leaders of the host nation, to public ridicule and embarrassment. Now, we saw that happen with Zelensky. And because Zelensky is a young man, very immature in the way of governance, you saw how he retorted. Almost resulted in fisticuffs in the White House. Has never happened before in the White House. I mean, and became a major news item which ran for close to 10 days on the major news bulletins. And as I'm speaking to you, many people are already writing books about the 5 or 10 minutes encounter of Zelensky with Trump in the White House. Now, Trump yesterday repeated that. But what is consoling are two things. There is unanimous condemnation of the set of facts that Trump presented to Sarah Ramaphosa. The unanimous condemnation that these are discredited facts. In fact, yesterday I was listening to one report which said that and backed Ramaphosa's claim that if it came to numbers of people who were victims of crime in South Africa, blacks suffered a disproportionately large number of its members being victims of crime. But importantly, Ramaphosa, cool and collected. I mean, he was a chief negotiator. He knows how to deal with the emotions of people. He was so cool and connected. Said, well, Mr. President, our country is a country of laws. So these people, I mean, anybody who is a subject matter of interest in our country for the commission of a crime, we investigate and punish. And punish. When the the recording was played, it was instrumental to get Trump to understand that those people making the statements
We're not even in government.
were not even in government. So it could not represent government policy. It could not. And so, but I just think that, like the polls are showing clearly in America, the Americans are beginning to have a second thought and probably thinking that they ought to have exercised their votes in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable, let's hear from you, sir.
Firstly, good morning to all our cherished viewers, and my father here, Uncle Kwesi, and my big brother, Nusa. You know, yesterday, I actually didn't watch the news, because I listened to it on radio, and I didn't even bother to go and listen to it again. Because when I listened, I heard the snipers on BBC. I asked myself one simple question: but to what end? What is Trump trying to achieve? And to take off from where my brother started, the world that we see today, between 1500, the last 500 years till now, has been dominated by a certain white supremacy ideology and thought process that evolved from slavery through colonization, through what we have today, including even the Bretton Woods institutions that you have created today. It's the same structure, same set of people. Nothing has changed. Where they even went to the extent of taking over people's cultures and their lands. Just as he said, in Namibia, the Hama people, they killed them like dogs. In Australia, up until 1992, there was a law that says that they didn't meet any human beings there, and that it was only flora and fauna that they met there. So white Australians were at liberty to kill all the indigenous people. They killed them like dogs. They chased them. There was a bounty hunt, 200 rabbits, 200 aborigines. They killed them. There are so many newspaper cuttings of those things that happened. And these things, some of these things didn't just happen. They happened with the tacit complicity of the church, religious bodies. All these things happened. South Africa, we just saw the tip of the iceberg, or the end of the troubles as growing up. Because there was a systematic process,
and so this sort of second wave of Pan-African liberation leaders,
circumcision, forced circumcision of women, poisoning their food, poisoning their, giving them diseases. South America, even today, some indigenous people in Peru are being killed just because they want to enter their forest and take over their lands and use their lands for farming. Peru, Brazil, and it's all being pushed by this white settler colonial mentality. It is no different from what has happened in Canada and all those other places, including the United States of America. But that notwithstanding, back to the issues of yesterday, just yesterday. In fact, Donald Trump displayed gross ignorance of the matters that are happening in South Africa. Whoever his advisors have really exposed him. What is happening in South Africa? People have been displaced of their own, their natural habitats, their own lands. The indigenous people of South Africa have been displaced. When you go to Soweto and you see Soweto today, it is an amalgamation, it's a reservation. They brought indigenous people from all other points and put them together. That you stay here, you cannot go here. When you go to northern Johannesburg, you needed a pass. Even in Accra, you know we had that same problem in Accra. When you are coming to the parliament, where the gates are, the gates of parliament, we needed a pass to enter that area, the range area that we have today. That is why we had all those bungalows and all those. Yes, 1 acre lands, where we tried to build a cathedral. All those areas. You needed a pass to enter that place, and the indigenous people were left at Osu, on the other side of the cemetery. So these things, when sometimes we talk about them, they are not things that have not transpired in our lifetime. These are things that have transpired in our fathers' lifetimes. Uncle Kwesi may have seen a better part of it than we have seen. People fought for the change that we find today. So you get somebody like Donald Trump trying to perpetuate that thinking and that thought process. It makes you wonder what the world will look like another 50 years from today. The main issue, in fact, the underlying factor is the fact that South Africa led this anti-apartheid fight against Israel, has led this anti-apartheid fight against Israel in the last 2 years, including the case at ICC. Even today, there's another case running parallel to that, led by South Africa, against the invasion of Rafah by Israel. So therefore, we have to also, in their mindset, make South Africa the scapegoat. Oh, then let us also say that they are also perpetrating a genocide against white people in South Africa. Really? What genocide? Do you know the tracts of land that some people have in South Africa? Some are as big as half of Ghana. Go to Namibia. Farms that are as big as half of Ghana. Displace the indigenous people out of the places and put them in tin shacks. Tin shacks. What do you call it? Chelsea then, you know? Yes. And in the summer, it's so hot, you can even fry your egg on top of those tin shacks. So this is how dehumanizing we've been able to push our people to. So for me, I only see this as what, as a retaliation, you know, Trump trying to retaliate or try to score points, political points. But yesterday, he was exposed because he didn't understand the fundamentals of the issues. The ministerial team that went alongside Cyril Ramaphosa included his agric minister. The agric minister who is in charge of the land reforms is a white man from the opposition party, DA. He was the leader of the DA. And he is in charge of the white settler farmers that he's talking about. He was there. He gave the statistics. He participated in the discussions. So you cannot just wake up and throw dust in the eyes of people, because South Africa is standing firm to do what is right. Standing firm to support the people of Palestine. Standing firm to fight apartheid. That is all. So today it may be South Africa, but we should all know that if we don't collectively support South Africa in this bid and fight, we will one day become victims of the same medicine. And that, for me, that is where our focus should be. That all efforts, the same way we put in efforts to liberate South Africa, that same effort should be, South Africa naturally must lead the process because they have suffered in that space and therefore can lead the process. People say that America didn't have colonies in Africa. America went to Diego Garcia, they bought it from Britain. If you know Diego Garcia, it's an island in the Indian Ocean. It belongs to Mauritius. They eliminated the indigenous people. Those that survived, they put them in Seychelles, and Britain took some to land the UK. They fought until last year, the courts in Britain said that no, these indigenous people must be given back their land and allowed to return there. America wanted to use the place as a nuclear staging post. All the aircrafts that were flying to Iraq to bomb the innocent people of Iraq were flying from Diego Garcia, very far away in the middle of the ocean. But they were indigenous people who owned the land, who lived there, grew there, were fishing there, had farms, had their graves there. So anybody tells you that America didn't even have, America had colonies in Asia, in Philippines, in parts of Guam and Co. So they also had their own sphere of colonization. It may not have extended here because the French and the British were on our side, but America had colonies in Africa. So we should understand it from that perspective and know that we are in a war that has not come to an end. It started about 500 years ago, but it is ongoing. And that we who are conscious of it and have found ourselves in political office must now spend more time educating our people to understand that those people, they are not our friends. When we say they are development partners, sometimes I even shudder. How can somebody who is trying to push you down be your development partner? How can your enemy love you more than himself? So it's just this is a microcosm of a bigger picture, a bigger problem that we all have to. Coming back to trade, South Africa is one of the is the hegemon of let's say economic hegemon of Africa, between South Africa and Nigeria. South Africa has huge industry. South Africa has a lot of technology. People don't know. South Africa has a lot of military technology. because South Africa became very resilient during the apartheid era. South Africa has nuclear technology. South Africa is self-sufficient in coal technology. Well, they took coal plants from South Africa back to Germany, and today Germans are firing the power plants. So companies like Denel have produced some of the best military equipment in the world. These helicopters that they use for fighting, like Apache helicopters, they were all derived from a South African aircraft called Rayfolk, or what, it has this Afrikaans names. So I may not be able to mention it well, but that is how deep South Africa is. You must understand the role South Africa plays in Africa, even military interventions all over the continent. Today, the issues that are happening in Congo, people don't know why South Africa is there. Because Congo, there's a lot of gold in Congo. So the fighting that is going on in Congo is being fueled by others outside. Today, the United States is promising Congo peace for minerals. What role is the United States playing in there? Because he's participating in the war. It's countries like South Africa that put their men on the line, South Africa, Tanzania, that put their men on the line to stop the, I would say, the proxies of the United States from taking over Congo, the eastern part of Congo. So it's a deeper problem that we need to look at. But moving forward, I believe that as a continental body, as a continent, our institutions like the AU should be in the forefront, defending countries like South Africa or giving them the needed support. Because otherwise, what will happen is they'll be divided and rule amongst us, and they start pushing one against the other, and then whatever we are fighting against our imperialist enemies may not be successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well said, Honorable. Comrade?
Well, I'm inclined to share the blame for what happened yesterday equally. Trump was wrong. He didn't have his facts right. He clearly demonstrated his racist bias and so on. But what was Cyril Ramaphosa doing in the White House? Who sent him there? Who asked him to go there? What was his business in the White House? You see, our leaders, the African leaders, have to spend their efforts promoting African integration, African unity and development, rather than seeking the approval of leaders like Trump and countries like the United States of America. That's where the problem is. Sir Ramaphosa is confused himself. There's too much fog in his head. He's unable to think properly. What did he go to the White House, the Oval Office, to look for? He should tell us. Why? Are you telling me that Cyril Ramaphosa did not know that this was Trump's position and that Trump was going to seek to embarrass him? We have all known over the last few months and so on, Trump actually granting asylum to persons he perceived as victims of land grab in South Africa. This has been public knowledge. And he walked into this trap with his eyes open and brain not working. He walked into this trap. Cyril Ramaphosa himself is an embarrassment to Africa. Leaders like him should not be pitied. They should be condemned in the strongest possible terms. You understand? So that's where I start from. Now, there's something which is very interesting. Donald Trump is looking for perpetrators of genocide in the world today and seeking to punish perpetrators of genocide. But he closes his eye to Gaza and goes to South Africa. Amazing! You are looking for genocide today in the world, and your focus is on South Africa and not Israel. In Gaza, more than 70,000 people, have been slaughtered in In how many years? 2 years.
20 months.
70,000 people have been slaughtered. 2/3 of them are women and children. Donald Trump doesn't see that. The United States of America is providing the weapons that are being used for the massacre in Gaza. It's not a problem for Donald Trump. Amazing, unbelievable. Look, and this is the problem that I have with some of the leaders in South Africa. You understand? As we speak, everybody or most people think that apartheid has come to an end. Has apartheid come to an end? There are places in South Africa today, as we speak, where blacks are not allowed to enter. There are places today in South Africa where blacks are not allowed to enter. And so Ramaphosa is presiding over this nonsense. He's presiding over it. You understand? And then he goes to the Oval Office in the White House. He allows himself to be bullied. And they say he's a nice diplomat. When you are being punched in the eye, and you sit down with your arms folded, you are not a nice diplomat. You are not a nice diplomat. And what happened in the Oval Office is as much an indictment on the Trump administration and its support for global racism and genocide as an indictment on Ramaphosa himself. He should explain to us, to the African people, why he went into an alliance with the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance, who is an offshoot of white minority rule in South Africa. He should explain to us. Why did he reject all the other offers available to him? Ramaphosa should be explaining to the people of South Africa and should be explaining to us. And stop playing the victim. He's not the victim. He's an ally of the perpetrator. That is what Ramaphosa is. What is this? What is this? Alhaji Inusef Husseini was talking about the Indian reservations in the United States of America. I had the privilege of visiting Mikusuki. Mikusuki in the south of the United States of America. My brother, it's a zoo. It's a zoo for human beings. I mean, the narrative is that they are keeping Indians in their natural environment. Listen to the construction. That they are keeping Indians in their natural environment. What they have done is to fence the area, Mikusuki. And the Indians live there, they farm, they fish, they engage in textile manufacturing and so on, using traditional methods and so on. And you pay money at the gate, just like you pay money at the Kumasi Zoo to go and see monkeys. That's the same thing you do there in Mikusuki. The United States of America is still keeping Indians in zoos. And it's talking about what? Genocide? Discrimination on the basis of race and so on? I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. But you see, we have allowed this to happen. We have a task of uniting the African people and our allies around the world to build our societies, to confront poverty, to expand education, and so on. That is our task. Our task is not to please the United States of America or to please those countries. Today, as we speak in this studio, the United States, under the leadership of Donald Trump, is promising to buy Greenland. To buy! Can you believe it? They are going to buy, they want to buy Greenland. They want to buy Greenland. They want to take over Canada as the 51st state of the United States of America. This canal, Panama Canal, they want to take it over by force and so on. This is the president who is telling us about genocide in South Africa. He has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, I travel to South Africa on a regular basis. I mean, many times I go to South Africa, okay? You should go to a place like Bella Bella and see the large tracts of land owned by white farmers. The vast majority of lands in South Africa are still in the hands of the minority white settler community. The blacks are being denied access to land. Is that what he calls genocide? My goodness. Donald the Trump. But you see, Donald the Trump can happen anywhere in the world. And indeed, history has seen many of them, people like Donald Trump. We saw Bokassa in Africa. Bokassa in Africa. We've seen the likes of Duterte and so on. You know, we've seen them. We should be careful in Ghana not to make the mistake of electing a Donald Trump. It is possible. No, I'm serious. I'm very serious. There are some of the people who are offering themselves for presidency, who see themselves as future presidents, will be worse than Donald Trump and Duterte. They will be, there's nothing in their head, not even cotton wool in their head, nothing, no brain matter in their heads. And they're offering themselves as presidents in Ghana. We should be careful. I mean, in the last election, my brothers, in the last election, I was so shocked. I mean, I didn't believe that the elections were taking place in Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. One of the presidential candidates, his main message was that if he or she got elected, he would change the method of oath-taking in Ghana. And that elected and appointed officers would take oath with water bought by poor people. And I'm saying, my goodness, does she know the country she's talking about? How does that resolve our economic problems? How does that lead to the appreciation of the value of the city? How does that resolve the mess in cocoa marketing in the cocoa board? How does that lead to the expansion of education and so on? But all of these people are offering themselves for leaders for Ghana. And I think we should be very careful, including one who is going to take the sea from Jamestown to Kejetia. It's okay.
Right, thank you very much. Away from South Africa, still to come, would have that conversation about the latest updates in the case of the Chief Justice, or the suspended Chief Justice. And then we shall also be looking at the city's performance, where Gideon Boakon, a former spokesperson to the former Vice President, is saying that Mahama is ruling, but Bawumia's ideas continues to reign. And then Mahama orders halt to sale of government lands. At this point, I want to again urge you to be a part of today's conversation. Let me know what your thoughts are. The text line has been displayed on your screen, as you can see right now. Make sure you leave a message for me. I'll read it in the course of the show. But let's get into the story about the Chief Justice, the suspended Chief Justice, the latest updates. She wants two of the Supreme Court judges on her case to be excused. That should be Justice Pwamang and then Justice Asiedu. There are other developments as well, and I'm sure that Honorable Yunusa Hussein, who is himself a senior lawyer, would shed further lights on this for us. Honorable.
Yes, the new development is simply that the Chief Justice, through her lawyer, Godfrey Odami, have gone to court, praying the court to injunct, or if you want, restrain the committee set up by the President under Article 1466 from continuing to perform its functions of hearing of petitions filed against the Chief Justice. also hearing the Chief Justice side of the case and making a determination. So they are in court. They are also, as part of the reliefs that they are seeking in court, is the removal of Justice Gabriel Poma as a member or chairperson of the committee or a member of the committee, on the basis of the fact that in earlier decisions of the Supreme Court, he had given judgment in favor of Daniel Ofori, who is one of the petitioners. They are saying that they want Justice Asidu Adibo to be removed because Justice Asidu was one of the members of the panel that was constituted to hear an application for an interim injunction against the setting up, the setting up of the committee in the first place. And so they want the other 3 members of the committee to be removed because they think that the 3 members of the committee have breached or they are not qualified to be members of the committee by reason of the Oath Act of Ghana. And so they are attacking the essence and existence of the committee. They are also attacking the constitutional duty or mandate of the president acting in consultation with the Council of State to determine whether the petitions raised a prima facie. They are saying that the letter that was written by the president suspending the Chief Justice on the 22nd day of April 2025 is at best unconstitutional and all those things. What is my verdict? It appears to me that the Chief Justice is desperately trying to scuttle the process. And so we'll do everything to ensure that she throws spokes into the process. We saw that happen when she herself had made an application to the committee to hear the proceedings in public instead of in camera. She had said that because some aspects of the processes were leaked to the public, that it was important to just go the full hog of making the whole proceedings public. That was the first shot at scuttling the committee. It failed. Because the committee ruled, and we discussed that on this platform. The committee ruled that they were not yet they were not in the business of violating the express provisions of the Constitution. And so now we recently read a petition by a former parliamentary candidate of the MPP at in the eastern region, Kumi, who said that the 2 justices plus a young man, yes, Adenta.
A candidate.
He was not, but he was a parliamentary candidate.
No,
parliamentary primaries. Yes. MPP parliamentary primaries. Okay. So he didn't even make it to the ticket of the MPP.
No.
Okay, he was seeking to make it. So he has said that he had chance on the 2 justices of the Supreme Court who are members of the committee, together with Yunikulendi and the lawyer discussing the petition. I was taken aback because the profession, their profession, the profession of the court, debars justices from attending public meetings and even engaging in conversations. I mean, so when you meet a justice of the Superior Court of Adjudicature outside, privately, as a lawyer, the first thing that strikes me is surprise. Hey, my Lord, what is happening here? Because we are not accustomed to seeing that. And that practice is of old. Grotius was a learned jurist. You know how the Greeks treated him? They built his house on a mountain. So anybody going to see him will be seen by people who were down. That's how they isolated him from contact with them. So it is not part of the practice to find justices of the Superior Court of Judicature sitting in restaurants, eating and engaging in conversation. I really doubt it. And these men, Puama and Adibo or Tariosori, I have known them in practice. They are men of integrity. They are solid guys. They're solid guys. Now, the petition, the motion is in court, so I will not go to the merits of the motion, except to say that they are invoking the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court for declarations of a nature. And the basic fundamental reason they are adducing is that it appears to them that the Chief Justice has a right to public hearing, reading Article 17 and other articles of the Constitution. Well, so just looking at even the way they couch their relief, it appears to me to be founded on human rights. They are saying that the Chief Justice has a right, is part of her human rights by their construction of all the articles to be heard in public. Never mind that the Constitution has expressly stated and even emboldened the in-camera hearing. They're saying that that right, if they construe all the articles, it will lead to that right. I think that the laws have said, and the precedents in court have established a long line of precedents, that when it comes to the enforcement of a right, the first court that you go to is the High Court. And no matter how you couch your reliefs, if the Supreme Court comes to the conclusion that that relief is for the enforcement of a human right and not a question of interpretation, they'll throw it away. Because it is the High Court that has exclusive jurisdiction in the enforcement of human rights. That is what I have seen so far. I looked at the writ again and I saw that it is actually in the Supreme Court. And I don't see them demonstrate any ambiguity in the attached affidavit of anything that leads to the conclusion that the provision in camera can be interpreted one way or the other. I've not seen that in their affidavit. And it means that they believe and have reasons to believe that the provisions are clear. Except that they are now saying that when you take other provisions and read them together, it establishes the right of the Chief Justice to a public hearing. How that can displace and express provision in the Constitution that requires in-camera hearing, we have to wait for the Supreme Court. But what I see clearly appears to me that this is a desperate attempt, masked a human rights matter in the form of a constitutional interpretation to invoke the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. But it's in court. Let's wait and watch the process.
Right. I'll get a few messages before I come to Honorable Hanson Norte. I think Tokono is just wasting her time. She's so corrupt and wants to cover herself in the MPP.
Be careful what you read.
Right.
It's a matter before corruption.
Yes.
And she's not been convicted of corruption.
Well,
you cannot be calling her corrupt.
This one here says, the old men of Ghana must know that whether they like it or not, whether they like it or not, Cheddar will connect the sea to Asante. Okay, all right. I would have wished the CJ take Mr. Amaliba or Mr. Daudu as her counsel instead of Mr. Dami. This has worsened her case and it's clear she is in. Okay, all right. Good morning, Pan Africa TV and the panel members.
Abuabia Bewa or pray, literally every animal struggles before it dies. All the suspended Chief Justice is doing will end up to a removal from Dan in Asin Central constituency. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, bless. In fact, the suspended Chief Justice is finally looking for a last disgrace because her own judges she worked with would throw her motion away. My deepest worry is how Noble Tokonu is being dragged in the mud. Okay, Sylvia Tamaklo from Anyako. Thank you, Sylvia, for your message. Why is Baumia not admitting that the power problems, container theft, state properties looting, and all public debts is also his brainchild? Okay. This one here says, Uncle Kwesi will kill me this morning with laughter. Human zoo in America. Right? They are engaging in these unnecessary and irresponsible litigation because they never considered the fact that no condition or position is permanent. They are dazed. Asanko from Santa Maria sent this one. Some NPP members are saying that the cedi is appreciating against the dollar because the government is not spending. That is false. The government is spending wisely by not spending on Wachi and Kinke parties irresponsibly. Okay, thank you for your message. This one here says, Justice Tokonu should blame Afenyomakin for compelling her to be unjust to Mother Ghana. You didn't tell me your name and where you sent your message from. This one here also says, MPP is afraid of going to jail, almost all of them. So that is why they are seriously defending the CJ's removal. She must go at all costs for oral to work. So MPP should give us a break. What are they afraid of? Thank you. Coming from Prosper Kaleji from Kaswa. Thank you, Prosper. Good morning to the people of Kaswa. Many thanks for doing the watching. Good morning, sir. What at all is the interest of this woman? The woman's desperation to stay at CJ speaks volumes. She has some agenda. If not, she would have prudently resigned. Afenyomakin and the field army are the people deceiving the woman. From Anefi in Tamale Central constituency. Thank you for your message. I'll read this last one, then I come to Honorable. Good morning to you and your panel. Mordecai from 37. The IGP should transfer all the police who are taking bribes from drivers to Boku. Oh well, right. Well, Honorable, let's hear from you on this matter. Yeah.
From my senior, he has spoken eloquently on this matter. But what I see is a very long, drawn-out battle, in quotes, because our legal system is very adversarial. That's the nature of our legal system. It's like a boxing match. So you can tell that, because the CJ knows that, like he said, all these human rights cases must start from the High Court. If you go up there, it will be thrown away, and we'll now go and start from the bottom. So you can actually tell that it's a long, drawn-out battle. But my fear and my worry is that at the end of the day, when we are done with all this, even if it takes 2 years or a year and a half, would have damaged the institution and the office of the Chief Justice. That is my fear. The aura and respect that the Chief Justice's office needs to be able to convey the authority of the law would have been diminished. You can actually, I mean, the young man he was referring to, I know him very well, that under no circumstances would he, I mean, have the space to even file a petition at that level. But it has become what it is. So he has been able to do such a thing. And he, you know, it's not just, he's indicting these 3 members of the bench. That, oh, you know what, they went to sit somewhere, or alleging that they went to sit somewhere, had lunch, and may have even discussed matters that they are not supposed to. So they are colluding or preparing something. I mean, at the end of the day, the damage that will be done to the institution of the Supreme Court will be very, 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 very deep. And we have to take note of that as a people. It will be very, very deep. And that is my fear and worry about this whole matter. The CJ pushing for it to be, because he's filed a suit, pushing for it to be held publicly, is to expose the whole, is to expose the whole institution in the eyes of the public. Because I'm sure there'll be more matters than this. This is just the tip of the iceberg. She's not going to go down in quotes alone. She's going to drag the whole system alongside with her. And it is not the best for Ghana. In all sincerity, it's not the best for Ghana. And I'm just pleading that I don't even have the words to describe what I want to say. That thinking heads would work. Find an amicable solution to this matter as quickly as possible, so that that arm of the state would function and function well. Whatever it is, whether it's personalized, it is internal, it is political, it has to be nipped in the bud as quickly as possible, so that we move on as a state. If she's found guilty, whatever it is, I don't have a problem. But it should be done well. It's not all issues that are discussed in public. It's not all issues that are discussed in public. And for that, I do not subscribe to that path that she's taking. But again, I'm saying that she's taking that path because she needs to also defend her honor. She needs to defend who she is. She needs to defend what she has become. And then the office, in her view. And therefore, would also go all out. And it's the nature of our legal, that's the training. It is adversarial. So, I mean, let's say a businessman might think, oh, let's settle this thing amicably. It doesn't matter. This is something we can discuss. We can break bottles on this and close the chapter. But when you bring a lawyer in and his colleague lawyer comes in, the dynamics change, and therefore they would have to go out all out. And at the end of the day, they can go and break their bottles. But before they break the bottles, the damage would have been done. So I'm just pleading that we'll be able to resolve these matters as quickly as possible and then move on from this. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Comrade Pratt?
Well, the whole, litigation is reported on page 13 of today's daily graphic. And I've read it very, very carefully. I'm handicapped by the fact that I haven't gone to law school like Alhaji Inus Afuseni and so on, and may not be able to walk the tightrope in discussing this matter. I've therefore decided to make very brief comments. And the first comment I want to make is that reading the story as published on page 13 of the Daily Graphic, it seems to me that the relief being sought has been sought before. This attempt to injunct the process, this is about the fourth attempt to injunct the process, and every time it's been thrown out. At some point, the court is going to have to decide whether to continue this same process over and over and over again. That's a decision that the court will have to make itself. You bring an application, it is dismissed, you go, you change the wording, and so on, you bring it back, and so on. The court will have to make a determination. Who am I to tell the court what determination to make? The court will make its own determination. But you see, I find something very, very interesting. This is one of the arguments which is being pushed in the court. And it says, the Chief Justice is seeking a further declaration that she has the right to waive the privilege of an in-camera hearing as stipulated in the Constitution. Very interesting. There's an admission that the Constitution actually prescribes an in-camera hearing. Okay? That admission is clear. But, as Chief Justice, she has the right to waive what is stipulated in the Constitution. Again, as I say, I'm handicapped. But would that amount to an amendment of the Constitution? And who has the right to amend the Constitution? This is a matter which is likely, to come up in the arguments before the court. If it's stipulated in the Constitution that the proceedings should be in camera. Can anybody change that? And changing that, would that amount to a backdoor amendment of the Constitution or not? These are matters again which will be decided by the court. I have no locus, I have no standing to determine, what is here. Then there's something else which is becoming increasingly interesting for me. Lawyers of the suspended Chief Justice have expressed their dissatisfaction with the acting Chief Justice and have even made the argument that he stands to benefit from the decision of the tribunal. Okay? So that is there. They've now gone on actually to raise questions about the credibility of two other judges of the Supreme Court, Gabriel Puaman and the other one. Okay? Asedu. Yeah. Then they've gone on to raise substantial questions also about the qualification of the three other panel members and so on. Where are they headed? That's for them to decide. It's not for me to decide. I can only ask the question, where is all of this leading? It is up to them and not up to me. My interest is that we have a constitution which needs to be protected. And we are living in a country where standards for public office holders appears to have fallen dramatically. And we have a duty to uphold standards which are edifying for all those who hold public office. That's all. No more comment.
Thank you. On to some more messages. This one here says, my simple question. Okay, my simple question. Assuming that the Chief Justice is eventually reinstalled, can she significantly strengthen the Supreme Court's reputation, improve its effectiveness, and ensure its ability to uphold the rule of law for generations to come? And also, send this one. Thank you. Hi, good morning, Bless. We beg you people to beg the Electoral Commission of Ghana to pay us for the services rendered to them during the December 7, 2024 election. Francis Kojo from Otafo sent this one. I keep on getting these messages about the EC's, I don't want to say refusal, but the EC hasn't paid people that worked for them in the 2024 elections. This one here says, so in one of the reliefs, some judges should be removed on the basis of their previous engagements in similar cases. So does this qualify for one judge, one case? Okay, this was a question you're asking, but you haven't told me your name. What has the CJ forgotten to take at the office before a suspension that she forgot and she doesn't want to leave office? She's just resigned to save her dignity. Godfrey Dami will rather do her more damage. James in Kumasi sends this one. Thank you, James. Good morning, Bless. Do you know that the MPP is not helping the CJ? 2. Is it also true that the Chief Justice gave contract to 2 of her children illegally? I'm surprised about how the Chief Justice wanted the Supreme Court to turn the Constitution upside down. Is she now the same person who made noise and said, whatever noise we make, the law is the law? Now, what has changed? Is the Supreme Court part of her benefits? Okay, all right. Thank you. George from Ablekuma sent this one. Thank you, George. Inusa from Takrady says, it looks like it's only the MPP lawyers and party supporters are the only Ghanaians supporting the Chief Justice. So in case this woman is reinstated, can she be neutral and work for Mother Ghana, or she will also support those who supported her? Thank you, Inusa from Takrady. Good morning to the people of Efie Kuma. It is very clear that the suspended Chief Justice is now dancing to the drum rhythms of death. She knows she is already gone. Challenging a sitting president in court of law, I believe, is an attempt to overthrow the constitution of the nation. Now, that means standing for Tokono to subvert the dictates of our constitution. We can see clearly what they were doing when they were in office. 7-0. from Amroga, saying this one. Thank you, Bubu, for your message. On to some messages that we have received from Facebook. And good morning to our Facebook viewers. That's cause of you watching right now. Thank you so much. Anafi Adam says, good morning, sir. What have told us the interest of this woman, the woman's desperation to stay at CJ Speaks volume. She has a dubious agenda. If not, she would have prudently resigned. Thank you for your message. This one here says, good morning to you all. Have a blessed Thursday. Julie Belinda Aubry, one of our regular viewers. Thank you so much for your message. Fataya Gomda Yahuza says, I'm loving Mr. Pratt this morning. Okay, thank you. Okay. Please, can we be serious? How can one person be taking the whole country to ransom on the right about the law? Mubarak sent this one from the United Kingdom. Thank you, Mubarak, and many thanks for doing the watching all the way from the United Kingdom. Good morning, sir. I'm curious, after the removal of the CJ, what next? Go and sin no more, or will there be prosecution where need be? JEC from Kumasi sent this one. Thank you very much. I'll read this final one. Good morning, Godfrey Dami representing the CJ Speaks volumes, who advised the CJ in that regard. Please say good morning to our inspirational General Secretary, Honorable Fifi Fiavikwete. Hassan from Tamale sent this one. Thank you, Hassan, for your message. There's a story on page 3 of today's edition of the Daybreak newspaper. CD performance, Mahama rules, but Bawumia's ideas reign. This is according to Gideon Baku, who, like earlier stated, was a former spokesperson to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. So there appears to be some contention about what is driving the current surge of our currency, the Ghana cedi. Yes, if you go to the forex market currently, the cedi I think is trading around 11.9 to $1. It's doing quite well. It's doing very, very well. But it appears the SWAL administration, the vice president of the SWAL administration, wants to take credit for that. According to him, the gold for oil and some other policies of the MPP is what is amounting to these gains. But this current administration also begs to differ. Honorable, yes, I'm starting with you. Who is responsible for the current, rise of the Ghana cedi?
So, firstly, multiplicity of factors, and you cannot pick one and leave the other. There's a global factor, which is external to Ghana, and there are internal factors also. Firstly, if you look at the global picture itself, in fact, if you take a historical perspective of currencies in the last maybe 500 years, whenever there's a growth in an empire, you have a hegemonic currency. So you have hard currencies like the Dutch guilders. At some point in time, the whole world was run by the Dutch. From Indonesia to, the Java cloth that we wear, Holland, why we call it Holland, they used to send it to Java, and then they leave some here in the West Coast. So the Dutch were all over the world. They were great sailors. Then we had the British pound also take over from the guilders when the British became a great global power. Then later we had Deutsche Mark and a few others until the United States came in. And we had the United States dollar, which is today, has been the hegemon of the world's economy for the last maybe 100 years, 50 to 100 years. So you see these cycles, this peak and trough of global currencies that have become hegemons over the world. And the effects of the decisions that are taken up there has a direct effect on us, especially with countries that have what we call floating currencies. So our currency is a floating currency. In fact, we call all those big ones the majors, and we call ours the exotics. So all the small currencies, CD, rupee, we call them all exotics. There's a global change that is happening. And I'm sure that my seniors on this panel all agree that there's a flux and there's a new global change that is happening where power is shifting from the west to the east. And therefore has made America's hegemonic might dip. Between January and now, the dollar has lost about 10% of its value. So if you had $100 in your bag and you could buy 100 bags of rice, today you can buy only 90 bags of rice. It's a significant drop. But the way currencies work, especially tradable currencies, is that it's a zero-sum game. Whilst you lose, I gain. When you gain, I lose. So when the dollar is rising, the CD automatically falls. When the dollar is sinking, the CD automatically rises because we have made the dollar the medium of exchange in terms of international trade. So if you look at the drop in the value of the dollar in the last 6 months, that 10% is reflecting directly on the CD. And the CD has literally made that gain in the last few weeks. We have seen it reflect the ripple effects coming into our market. That is number one. Number two, because of that flux and that change, there's a big demand for gold. Countries are buying gold like never before. They're even buying it higher than the world market price, the LME price. Why? So, because people want a store of value. They are trying to have a store of value, and they don't trust the dollar being their store of value any longer. If you go on the bond markets, Japan has dumped billions of dollars in the last 3 months. Just dumping the dollar, because that same dollar that is holding as a store of value, if the United States devalues the dollar, which the United States can do overnight, especially with somebody like Trump, who is very irrational in his decisions, if he devalues the dollar overnight, the value of dollar that you have becomes useless, or it will reduce. So for example, if you had $1 billion worth of dollars under your bed, and the interest, the rate was 1:1, and it changed from 1:2, you lose 50% of the value of your dollar. So countries like Japan, who have huge volumes of dollar, are now dumping their dollars on the market, and people are looking for gold. It is one of the reasons why we have illegal gold mining all over Africa, South America, Peru, Mauritania. They're all having the same problems that we are having in terms of galamsey. So there's a demand for gold. That demand for gold has also trickled down into Ghana. But there's a good thing that we have done internally. That's why I said we have what is happening externally and what is happening internally. What we have done internally, which I think is a good thing, is to consolidate the trading of the gold through the gold board. It is a very good thing. Anybody who trades knows that it's one of the best decisions that this government has taken, because the rate at which gold was being smuggled out of Ghana was unbelievable. Look, some of our trading partners, the UAE, for example, was quoting $43 billion worth of gold hitting their markets from Ghana. Yet Ghana receives only $6 billion back. What happened to the 30-something billion? It had to have been smuggled out, and Ghana made nothing on it. That, for gold, you don't even have to tax it. The forex will come in directly because people need the gold and they will buy it. Countries like India, who have stored a lot of dollars and also have a big demand for gold, we're beneficiaries of this. Today, they are even, fidgeting whether to support the dollar or to go with the BRICS group, because they fear that their internal demand for gold will cause devaluation of their own currency, because people would want to buy more gold. That's number one. Number two, they have a lot of dollars that if it's devalued, they will be in trouble. So there's a global flux that we have benefited from, which is very important. Lastly, back to the issue that you raised, the processes that has helped us to where we are today, which includes the gold reserves that we have, it didn't start yesterday, and it's a fact. It started under the last regime. They saw the light, saw that, look, maybe it's about time we also keep some gold for ourselves, and started the process, which is good. I mean, if you look at the Bank of Ghana records, it's clear that the previous government started the holdings, and this government has also seen light in that, and has continued with the process. That's why governance is a continuum. Yeah. So having continued with the process, we also have to give them credit for it. And For me, these are the cardinal issues that has helped us secure or the dollar, the cedi appreciates in the market. Those are the fundamentals. But beyond that, what are our main demands for dollar for? Importing food, importing petroleum products,
cars.
Petroleum products and food are the bulk of what we import. Food, what food? Chicken, intestines, shaki,
tribe,
yeah, pig feet,
rice.
Yeah. So are you telling me that we cannot produce any of these things in Ghana? How much do we spend on these products? About $2 billion a year. Can't we produce any of these things in Ghana? We have an oil refinery sitting, has become redundant in the last 10 years. Nothing has happened. They only store products for people and they sell. We have a private oil refinery in Ghana, as big as what we already have. Between the two of them, we can save Ghana over $2 billion a year. In fact, more than that, about $6 billion in terms of forex alone. In terms of imported products alone, the savings that we make on imported products alone, petroleum products alone. So these are the things that I expect the government going into the future to take a keen interest in. For example, revamping toll. How much will it cost to revamp toll? Maximum $200 million. Maximum $200 million and a parcel of crude. How much will it cost government to support a company like Sinto to continue with what they are doing? Maybe another cargo of crude on a 30-day credit. They will be able to work with it and pay. Both of them, between the two of them, can provide 80% of the petroleum products that we need on this market, and therefore would reduce the demand for forex. Because we cannot go on mining only. It's one thing you should understand. Mining is, as they say, it's what do you call it? It's finite. It's not infinite. It's not that you can continue forever.
Yeah.
At some point in time, you would have to. Your resources will start depleting.
Yeah.
So market sentiments may change. Many things may change. So we have to look at it beyond the gains that we are making today. And I hear people saying that, prices of goods are going to come down. Where? They're not going to come down anytime soon. Because people have stocks. People have products that they're also going to make their profits. It is not a controlled economy, a controlled market where you can dictate prices. It's a free open market. So traders would dictate the prices and they're going to take their gains at this stage. So we have an opportunity. That's one thing I see. We have an opportunity to use this windfall to change the dynamics of our economy, especially in things that we think are low-hanging fruits, like food, agriculture and petroleum, for example. Then other things that we need to do, like manufacturing. Incentivize manufacturing so that all the dollars that we import from, we bring in to import products would be reduced. There are so many things that we shouldn't import, no matter what the circumstances are, like toothpick. We should even produce it and make a loss. It's better than to sell our gold, to buy a US paper, to go and import these things and then live on them. Lastly, we should also be looking at currency swaps. Where does the bulk of our products on our market come from today? China, even the USA. The products that we go to America to go and buy are made in China. China is our factory, is the factory of the world. So if Ghanaian traders are trading with China for all the other petty things, why don't we just swap yuan with our cedi? We can go into an arrangement with them where we can swap our yuan with our cedi, and the demand for dollar would be less. The Chinese will give us the yuan in advance. Our traders will carry that along, or go when they go to China, pay with the yuan, and then we'll move on from there. But there are geopolitical issues around that as well. But for me, it is a positive thing. People say that it might affect manufacturing in Ghana. No, most of our manufacturers in Ghana import raw materials. The bulk of their raw materials are imported, and therefore would also benefit from from the decline in the value of the dollar on our market and the strengthening of the cedi, and therefore will not necessarily affect us too much. We also need to do some analysis to understand the ratios, the ratio of how the volume of imported goods, raw materials, and how it will affect us going into the future. But on that score, I want to, add my voice to what my colleague has just said, has put out there, that it is a continuous process. It started from somewhere, and if you admit to it, then it makes a lot of sense. So that in the event that there are issues, I read one of the text messages from our listeners saying that Dr. Bawumia should also take the flak for the difficult things that we have also found ourselves in. Exactly. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, taking the flak for that. However, we should also admit that the gains that we are seeing today is a continuation of what started before this government came into power. And obviously the government who has consolidated it with things like the gold board and some of the decisions that they have taken. And I think it's good for Ghana. It's good for Ghana, but we should be quick to take advantage of the opportunity. That's where I want us to focus on. Take advantage of the opportunity and sustain it. Because if you're unable to sustain it, trust me, the backlash. Today, a lot of people are not even buying. I realize that we have about $10 billion worth of dollars in reserves, 9-point-something billion. People are dumping the dollar. So why do you want to keep a dollar? When you have gold, God has blessed you with gold. Buy more, keep more gold, because today, last year, if 1 kilo of gold gave you $10,000, today that same 1 kilo of gold gives you $30,000. So you even need less gold to get more of the dollars. Even the people that have huge volumes of dollars are dumping their dollar to buy gold. Why do you now need to show up on a currency like the dollar? People are buying CHF, Swiss francs, because the Swiss francs is safer today than any other currency. The Swiss are always neutral when it comes to geopolitics of the world, and therefore everybody is rushing there. And look at the value of the Swiss francs today. It's shooting. The Japanese are dumping dollar to buy Swiss francs and gold. The Indians are dumping dollar to buy Swiss francs and gold. So we should also be looking at it from that perspective as well, to add other currencies to our portfolio so that we can hedge going into the future together with our gold and be more aggressive on keeping our gold, because we've sold a bit of gold in the last few months and raised about $2 billion, according to the Bank of Ghana. Assuming we had not sold that gold and even kept it for an extra 1 week, the value would have been about another $100 million more. So I think that it will be prudent as a state to be shoring up our gold reserves as quickly as we can, and then also hedging it with a currency like maybe Swiss francs, and doing currency swaps with our major trading partners. Brazil, where we get our chicken from, unfortunately, and then China, where we get some of our goods from, and then maybe a country like Turkey. But these are the three major economies that we trade with currently. And then a little bit of dollars, so that when the dollar is devalued, we don't end up with, excuse my French, toilet paper in our votes, and that would have real value for real money in our votes. That's a little I have to say on this.
Thank you, Honorable Musa. Let's hear from you. Okay.
Okay. I've listened to Ish. He was trying to balance between what his friend Gideon Bwako has said and what we are experiencing. One thing that he has said that has caught my admiration is that this government, the decision of this government, or some decisions of this government, deserves commendation. And I think that to that extent, he's been very honest. Why? What were the policy options of the MPP? It's true that we have, in currency determination and volatility of currencies, there are exogenous factors and domestic factors. But at what level did Ghana take the currency? On the 7th day of January 2025, the Ghana cedi was trading at a little over 17 cedis to a dollar. That's the point at which John Dramani Mahama inherited the economy of this country. At that point, the goal for oil policy was in operation, had operated for close to 3 years. At that point, the goal for reserves was in operation. So clearly, the impact of the two policies on the stability of the city were negligible. I mean, we didn't see that. So there definitely should be something happening. That is different from the gold for oil. And what is the gold for oil? Is, you know, when we were in opposition, we criticized the gold for oil. Why? Gold for oil simply means you don't have dollars, you don't have cedis, but gold is a currency of a sort. You have gold, or you can access gold. You take the gold, go and sell, get the dollars, and buy your oil. That's the gold for oil. That was all. Now, how was it implemented? How was it implemented? That Gideon Buffon now says that this was one of the issues of gigantic corruption in the system. Who was the person, who was the third party who was buying the gold and selling?
Goldrich and Mayfair Goldrich.
Who was he? How was he constituted? How much gold did he buy? At what price was he buying the gold? Do you know? Do I know? How much gold did he trade in the period that he was constituted? How much? How much cedis did we use to buy the gold from the Bank of Ghana? Because Bank of Ghana just simply gave the cedis out, then PMMC bought the gold, then gave the gold to a third party, the third party sold the gold and brought us oil. So when you talk about opacity or lack of transparency, that system is a clear demonstration of the recklessness and lack of accountability of the previous regime. Now, gold reserves. Tell me, as an economist, Gideon Buffon, how does gold reserve lead to stability of a city? The gold reserves are not even sitting in the Bank of Ghana. They're in the Bank of England. They're in the Bank of England. And the 30 tons that MPP bought when it was in power is still sitting in the Bank of Ghana. I mean, Bank of England. How does it contribute to reserves? Or how does it contribute to the stability of the city? What the reserves does is that anybody who has loaned us money knows that as we speak today, we can pay. So there will not be a run on our city. That's what it does. We can pay. That's what gold reserves does. So it gives confidence to the investor, but has nothing to do with your local currency. There should be something dramatically important that is taking place in this country. And I agree with him, part of it is the exogenous factors. The trade wars, or the trade war initiated by Trump, is operating to weaken the American currency. So because that is a trade war, and the world was trading in dollar, the weakness of the dollar will impact all countries. But you will see the relativities in how the cedi is performing against the CFA franc, how the cedi is performing against the rand, how the cedi is performing against the naira. You see the difference. And as we speak today, the cedi is the best performing currency in the world. Why? Because of the confidence. The change of government has brought in a certain level of confidence in the economy. Why? Prudence. It's not that these conditions were not available when MPP was in office. They were there. They had all the opportunity to strengthen the currency. And when they started with their policy choices, and there was some immediate gains in the stability of the city, what did Dr. Mahmoud Omia say? That the city had been locked, arrested, and the key given to the IGP. Because you could see from the beginning the congruence of policy, monetary policy, and fiscal policy. It's very, very important. Now, from January to date, the Bank of Ghana has withdrawn, has squeezed out from the economy 72.8 billion Ghana cedis. That should tell you that there is what we call inflation anchoring. You know, Economics 101. When there's excess money in the system, inflation, that's why our inflation went up to 54%. Now, so the Bank of Ghana's monetary policy stance, built on inflation anchoring, is removing the excess liquidity and not just putting it in the Bank of Ghana, giving it to Ghana Gold Board, and Gold Board is using the cedi to buy. That's one. That is translated in the stability and the increase in value of the cedi. Two, the cash reserve ratio of banks have also been increased. Banks cannot keep too much cash in their bank, so they have to deposit the cash at the Bank of Ghana. Three, and he's alluded to that. Before now, anybody who had a license could buy Ghana's gold and export. Before now, you could just export Ghana's gold. So he's right perfectly. At the time gold for oil was running and gold for reserves was running, in 2022 and 2023, government could not account for $1.7 billion of gold exported from Ghana. But meanwhile, we're struggling with the IMF for $3 billion. We couldn't. Again, he's demonstrated to us here on this table that the countries that received Ghana's gold keep records. It's an initiative that started during the first term of John Dramani Mahama through the European Union. Price transparency and whatnot. Yes, so they keep records. So when we reconciled the records they have on gold received from Ghana and the receipts that we received in Ghana, there was a big gap. So Ghana, our natural resource, one of our natural resources is gold. The way we use our gold will determine how we perform economically. So we establish a gold board. Anybody can buy gold in Ghana. Anybody. We have not said that people cannot buy gold, though. But you have to buy your gold from the gold board. So you bring your dollars, or you want an agreement for the supply of gold, you pay your dollars to the Bank of Ghana, gold board will supply you. It assures us of a regular supply. That is why just these few months, $2 billion of gold have been sold, and the $2 billion have come into our economy. Now, that is for purchases of gold. You cannot also export gold. You can't. It is the Ghana Gold Board that will export the gold on your behalf. So, yes, there might be those who will try to smuggle out gold. But what this has done is to minimize the extent of smuggling of Ghana gold. And let me put it on record. Every nation has the right, or it is the sole preserve of any nation to decide or determine how they want to treat their natural resource. And this is the way we are treating our natural resources. So the policy options of the NDC are dramatically different from that of the MPP. The last one, do you know that just the increase in value of the cedi has reduced our debt burden by 172 billion Ghana cedis? Just by that alone. And we are beginning to see policy initiatives that is talking to prudence. So we see he's mentioned Brazil and chicken. Then we say, oh, there's no reason whatsoever to export our jobs to Brazil. Because when you are importing chicken, you are exporting the jobs. So the NDC says, well, we will introduce Nkuko Nkitinkiti. They're trying to... Yeah, but the intention of that policy is to close that gap. Yeah. Then we say, oh, recently you heard the Minister for Finance. He said, oh, let's acquire 200,000 hectares of land. For what? For cocoa. Yeah, you don't agree. But that, I don't think you agree. You don't agree. No. You don't agree. But it's giving you an indication of investing in the productive sectors of the economy. That's the indication. How that is done is a different ball. But everybody now is seeing that there is a movement towards investing in the productive areas of the economy. Growth pools. Okay, how that can catalyze development. And you can see again as a related agri for export. Clearly looking at what can we also produce for the purposes of export. And when we export, we bring in foreign currency. So in the nutshell, what is happening is reducing the inflation in this country. Now, since we took over NDC, inflation is dropping and is continuing to drop. And yesterday you heard His Excellency John Dramani Mahama that it will continue to drop until we get to single figures. Okay. And when that happens, then we are indirectly putting money in the pockets of the people. Right. So clearly there are policy choices that are different from the MPP.
Right. Thank you very much. Finally, you comment, right?
There's something that there are no doubts about. The cedi's value has appreciated. It was exchanging for more than 17 cedis to $1. It's now exchanging for a little over 11 to $1. It's appreciated. Everybody can see. And everybody knows that this appreciation happened this year, not last year. That's also a fact. Everybody knows now that inflation is falling. Everybody knows that also as a fact. Now, as for the encomiums, you know, it's up to propagandists, you know, party spokespersons and so on, to do that. I'm more interested in establishing the science of what is happening. Because it is the science of what is happening which will take us forward, lead to stagnation, or take us backwards. Now, what is the science? Economics is a science. What is the science? And listen to me very carefully. We seem to be saying that anytime the cedi appreciates in value, then we are okay. It is not true. It is not true to the extent that the strengthening of the cedi helps importers, but actually kills exporters. Yeah, that's true. This is the science. So we have to make a determination. Do we want to encourage exports, or do we want to encourage imports? What is the balance that we want to strike? for the health of our economy? We haven't answered that critical question. And we are jumping about, it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad. We need to make that determination, okay? Because if we don't make that determination, we would not be scientific in our approach. Okay, that's number one. Number two, today, as we sit here, some of our debt service obligations have been suspended. So very soon, we are going to be paying those debts. What will be the impact when we start paying those debts on the strength of the city? Again, it's the application of science. Okay? We need to look at that. Now, yesterday, 2 days ago, I read a study by FIT. Is it? FIT. Which is predicting that by the end of the year, the cedi will be exchanging at 14 to $1. Which means that the strength of the cedi would have started falling by the end of the year. What are the factors which are going to account for that? How do we address that? In any case, we also constantly and scientifically make the argument that every drop in inflation is good. It's not true. You can actually use inflation to stimulate growth in the economy. Check the science. Okay? So all of this, how are we applying the science of economics for the benefit of our people? There's no doubt at all. I mean, our debt in cedi denomination has gone down drastically. It's a fact. You understand? And it's not bad news. But you have to situate it for now and for the future, which we are not doing. I think we should all avoid propaganda. Because propaganda lasts only for a short time. You understand? Propaganda, it will last. I mean, by December this year, all this propaganda about the rise in the value of the cedi, whether it's Bawumia who brought it about as well, it will collapse. By December this year, nobody can make that propaganda. It will be useless. Because we'll be dealing with a new reality as predicted by FIT. You understand? So I want to deal with the science, and I'm not seeing the science. I'm seeing reckless propaganda. That's what I'm seeing. You understand? And I think that we should be careful. Look, both political parties, the New Patriotic Party and the NDC, are committed to building a market economy. If I lie, tell me. All of them have a commitment to building the market economy. And yet, we are being told that there's a certain mechanism for getting traders to reduce their prices. It doesn't make sense. Is it the market which is deciding the prices of goods? Or it's a command? And then sometimes you're told, oh, we are meeting with traders, to convince them to drop prices. Is that how prices are determined in the market economy? I don't support a market economy. I think the market economy, operating in a market economy, is detrimental to the interest of the Ghanaian people. In fact, it has never worked anywhere. You understand? So I am not for a market economy. But if that is your choice, let that work for you. Show us that that is working. And stop sliding into the command economy mode. Because that's what is happening. Okay? In economics, there is what is called the gestation period. And in this discussion, I don't see people applying that science, to the discussion. There's a gestation period. Policy measures take time to mature and to impact. You understand? So even if we assume that some of the policies which have been taken have matured and are impacted and so on, fine. But let's do it properly. In spite of the existence of this concept of a gestation period, there are some things which make immediate impact. Okay? For example, oil prices. Oil prices react immediately to exchange rate variations, okay? But rice does not. Maize does not. Konkonte does not. So let us talk science and stop this, pedestrian talk. So the pedestrian talk ultimately would not be in anybody's interest. I mean, Honorable here was talking about his reservation about increasing cocoa production. I have the same reservation. I don't think that an economy like theirs, it makes a lot of sense to put a lot of resources in cocoa production. You understand? Already cocoa production has suffered severely. It's dropped by almost 60% over the last 3 years or so. Dropped by almost 60%. Now, what are the factors responsible for that? Swollen shoot disease. Oh, sometimes. That is one of those factors. Yeah. Mining, both legal and illegal. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. The land tenure system we operate and so on. All of this have acted to reduce cocoa production substantially. Now, what do we do? Do we want to increase the acreage? Do we want to increase the yield and so on? What is the science? Again, come back to the science. What is the science? Does it make sense for a country like Ghana, which is importing chicken from Brazil, which is importing guinea fowls from Denmark, which is importing tomato from Germany, to grow cocoa? No. Does it make sense? Again, you come back to the science. So let us always come back to the science. And if we come back to the science, our mistakes will be minimal. That's all.
Right. Thank you very much, Comrade Pratt. There are lots of people watching us on YouTube this morning. Several of you are watching. Thank you so much. Oyiwa Afa, Bright is also watching. Manuel Kazusa is also doing the watching. Life Tabernacle, that's your name. You're watching from Tamale. Thank you so much. And all the others doing the watching on Facebook and on YouTube, thank you so much. But our time is up. I need to go. We are making way for a special edition of Talk Time. We will be discussing, or Kwesi Pratt will be discussing the African Liberation Day with Dr. Mjiba Freyhiwot. I want to believe I haven't butchered her name, and she happens to be a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and this interview is coming up shortly at 10 a.m. You would want to stay and also watch that. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, my guest, for your time this morning. I'll see you tomorrow. Do have a pleasant morning. Bye-bye.